Welcome to the High Value Sales Show of Eversprint.com. I'm Malcolm Louie, the managing member of Eversprint, and today we're speaking with Natasha Miller, the president and chief experience designer of Entire Productions, an event and entertainment production company with an emphasis on experience design. Welcome to the call, Natasha.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Natasha, you grew your company's revenue from $1.25 million in 2014 to $3.1 million in 2017, a 148% increase, and now you're on track to hit $4 million in 2018. I do have a question about how you grew your business so fast, but before we get there, can you elaborate a little bit about what your company does, especially the experience design aspect?
Sure. So we actually started out bringing in entertainment, musicians and artists into high-end social and corporate events. And then we are now planning, designing, producing the events, as well as just bringing in the entertainment. But the experience design is a whole nother layer of how you sort of blueprint a design for the guests to have the experience starting right when they hear about it throughout the event to make it memorable and lasting long after it's gone, after it's done. So there's a lot of thought in design around that.
Can you give an example, say a company party, year-end company party, one that has a quality experience design and another one that does not?
Sure. So it all begins on how people hear about the event and whether it's word of mouth or a little buzz before. So you can do something to excite people before they even get an invitation. And then certainly it's how the invite goes out. Does it go out via email? Is it a PDF? Is it an Evite, Eventbrite? Is it a paper mailing? Is it a box with something inside of it? Is it a surprise? Is there a key maybe that would open something when you get there? So you can do a lot of things at the beginning of the arc to really start the engagement with the guests. So you can imagine in most office parties, if that's what we're going to use as an example, they're going to get a sort of especially if it's a large company, and we typically work with larger companies, they're going to get an email blast, right? It's going to be pretty
boring,
not anything that is exciting. Maybe the visual images are, maybe some of the languages, and that's very important as well. Maybe you can tell by what the dress code is or what the theme is that might drive that excitement. But then also as you arrive, typically you arrive to whatever venue or building it is, and there's nothing really calling to action outside. It's only until you open the doors that you realize that, there's something going on. So in experience design, we always want to have something before the guests arrive, maybe as they arrive in the parking lot, with lighting, with entertainment, with signage that really is welcoming and says, you are here. And then once they're inside, we try to make sure that certainly their expectations are met, right? The room is warm if it's cold outside, chilled if it's hot outside, et cetera, that their basic needs are met, that there's a proper coat check. These things all make pretty good sense in general, but you would be amazed at how many times people miss these elements that make the guests uncomfortable in some way. It might not be ruining their experience, but it's definitely not making it easy for them to appreciate it. And then once in, we like to make sure that there are surprises throughout the night, things that they're not expecting. So of course they're expecting some sort of food and some sort of drink, and maybe some kind of entertainment, even if it's just music playing overhead. But of course we like to blow that out as much as possible and bring in live entertainment and interactive things for them to do, and things for them to create memories to take away from them. And of course, we want them leaving the event with something in hand and with a great memory and great fondness of what they just experienced. We strive to make sure that when people leave, or even during the event, they're like, I've never been to an event like this in my life. It's amazing. And I used to work at Google. To us, that is sort of the stamp of approval when we've shocked and awed our guests.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I mean, if I were to throw an event, It would be the boring email and yeah, show up and have dinner and cocktails and yeah, there'd just be some background music. That would be it.
It doesn't have to be that way. With some planning and some creativity, you can really up the ante on a small office party.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can see how people will remember that for years to come. So obviously, people love this experience. They love the idea. It's driven your business quite rapidly, right? 1.25 million
Mm-hmm.
in, 2000, in
Yes.
2014 to 3.1 million 3 years later in 2017, and now you're looking to bump it up again, 4 million in
Right.
2018. What were the three biggest drivers of your success over the past few years?
I would say the biggest driver for me for the success has been actually getting an education from the Goldman Sachs 10K SB program. It really catapulted my thinking, my planning, my forecasting, my understanding of business. We've always been able to do a great job at what we do, but the mechanics of running a business and thinking financially and fiscally, we're not quite there. I mean, for me, to be honest, I like to say 4 years ago, if you were to have a conversation, you and I, about my balance sheet, my profit and loss, how much it costs to run my business, what kind of a cash flow I had, I would not be able to answer those questions. I would be able to go look them up in QuickBooks, maybe, but I wouldn't have understood the ramifications. And so, thank God, I've been in business for 18 years. I did much by gut. I knew it was coming in. I knew it was going out. But now I really know my stuff. So I can even speak to a CPA and have a very in-depth conversation about the mechanics of my business, which honestly, if I were to stress enough to anybody listening, is to really engage and become educated. So that's number one. Number two is I invested in and understood the need for a great sales team and developing, onboarding, training, mentoring, and getting the right person. For my organization, a salesperson has to be incredibly creative, but also be able to have that burning fire in their gut to go and pull down deals. And those two personalities don't typically go together. So somebody that can sell $1 million in Xerox machines or pens or, Salesforce wouldn't necessarily be a shoe-in to be successful in our organization, because with our clients, we're selling them their dream. And that could mean, painters, artists, models, singers, bands, design concepts. So it's very difficult to find that combination. And then three is really engaging in the organizations in our industry. So I know exactly who our target demographic is, what they look like, what they read, what they wear, where they go, as far as the organizations within our industry. And we don't waste time attending and trying to get the attention of people that aren't ever going to use us.
Fantastic. So just to recap, the three biggest drivers of your business would be: one, the business education you received that you learned from the Goldman Sachs program; two, investing in a fantastic sales team and training them and mentoring them and making sure that you have people who are creative and have fire in their gut to win the deals and understand what you're selling, right? You're selling the client's dreams and making them happen. And the third one is having a really clear picture of who you're targeting more than anything else for your prospective clients. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Awesome. Fantastic. Can you share a little bit on your target demographics, your ideal clients? How did you arrive to that conclusion as to these are the people you want to focus on, or organizations you want to focus on? And, and who are these people? Who are these organizations?
Yeah, so it really came out of years and years of working with, smaller individuals, brides, mother of the brides, weddings, small parties, and the work that goes into working with people that aren't in the profession of putting on events is 4 to 6 times more work for us than working with someone who's not as emotionally involved in their event. So that's corporate, right? You're not as tied to your own money as you would be if you're doing a personal thing. And then 2, typically these people are putting on events on a regular basis, so they have some sort of an idea, so they're not complete novices. But that said, our clients they're the event planners at Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, and literally you name the top 50 tech companies, and we work with them. But we could be working with their events team internally. We could be working with someone in their HR department. We could be working with an administrative assistant. So sometimes those people don't have as much experience in the event industry, but it just definitely is easier for us to work with them because they're not spending their own money.
Right. And now, how did you actually find them? How did you I know you at one point you said, yeah, these guys are a lot of work, but then somehow slowly you must have been gravitating toward the larger companies and say, hey, this is much easier.
Right.
So did you just make the jump from wedding planning all the way to these big large companies? Or?
It was definitely done in phases. And then when we're realizing what takes us more time and what takes us less, then we're starting to sort of back away from the social events. But where to find the clients? So when I started out doing marketing and branding, I would have gone to the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce events. I thought, wow, what a big bucket of gold that is. But the truth is, only about 1% of the people that go to the Chamber of Commerce events would really be using us for something because, it's a bunch of small businesses, which, they have their own small events, but not our target demographic. Then I realized we're a member of, there's at least 10 event-based organizations. One is called ILEA, one is called MPI. Right there is 75% of our target demographic. If we attend an event there, educational event, and then specifically join that organization, get on a committee, and then ultimately on the board, every single person in that organization is a potential client. So it's not, the difference, I can't believe it took me about 1.5 years to figure this out. I stopped going to Chamber of Commerce events where there was absolutely no leads. And then I continued going to these event-specific organizations where it was 100% leads. That made a huge difference.
Can you share a little bit about one of those organizations and what they're about? I'm not familiar with them.
Right. You shouldn't be. You're not in the event industry. It's secret. So ILEA is International Live Event Association. And the people that go to that event, that organization are caterers, vendors in the industry, but also event planners that work both on social and corporate. There's another organization called MPI, which is Meeting Planners International. That's more corporate events, meetings, conferences. So between those two, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of business that get funneled into our company just by attending those events, marketing, networking, being on a committee, getting on the board. That's where I actually advise anybody in the event industry to do those two things when I'm mentoring them.
Now, are these association memberships that are very specific?
Yes.
Are they your primary source of leads, or do you have other sources as well?
They're definitely our primary source of leads. Now that we're really known for what we do because of social media, big companies are finding us just from our Instagram posts. We've landed quite large accounts just from an image on Instagram. But now when we have all these quality key logos under our belt, anybody that we present to knows that we're experienced and have a great track record. So there's really no doubt in their mind as to whether they can hire us and trust us or not. So, we could probably not go to the ILEA and MPI events for the next year or two and still have a growing business. But we built our foundation on going to those events and making ourselves known to the community.
Right. Can you share a little bit more about the marketing that you're doing right now to either find new business or increase your brand or to increase awareness of what you're doing out there?
Yes. So whenever we do a big blowout event, we definitely have a blog post written about it, and then we share that on our social media. It might land in a newsletter, and we're very careful about sending out our newsletter only when there's something really cool and exciting to share. So my open rate is very good, and it's pretty amazing. But I also only send out a newsletter when I feel it's right. So there's no monthly or quarterly or annual newsletter. It might come out 3 or 4 times a year, and I get incredible feedback. People will stop me at events and our event organizations and say, "Oh my gosh, we love your newsletter. It's so much fun. I love reading it." You don't really you don't really hear much about that about other people's newsletters. So I'm very careful not to make it more structured, like everyone says that you should.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose followers by putting out something arbitrarily every month. So
Right.
I'm
Okay.
bucking, the tradition there. Our Instagram feed is pretty strong. We don't have an incredible amount of followers, but we have very quality followers. And we've received probably $500,000 in business just from Instagram alone over the course of the last couple of years.
Nice.
They just reached out to us directly. When we send out our newsletter and we're showing some of our spectacular events, maybe someone who hadn't used us before and was kind of just waiting on the sidelines sees something that excites them, and then they finally pull the trigger. Right now, our business is about 95% inbound. So our sales team really doesn't have a lot of bandwidth to go out and present and sell to new companies. But pretty much as soon as we get sat down in front of someone and give them our presentation and tell them about what we can do with them, it's pretty much a go. So we don't have to work that hard once we get in front of someone, but it's hard to get in front of them because we're so busy with the inbound. It's a great challenge to have.
So, in terms of your goals for next year, right? I mean, you're at 4 million in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking to accomplish in 2019?
Yeah, so our revenue goal will be at least 5 million. There's a contract out right now for about 1.2, so a miracle may occur. It may be signed by the end of December, but it's for events for next year. So definitely want to hit that 5 million mark. I would like it to be more. We're looking at increasing net profit, really making sure that we're qualifying leads and making a higher minimum and turning down business. We really haven't done much of turning down business, and that's something that I've really learned through my Goldman Sachs program and some other programs, is to identify the more core and poor clients and kind of cut the poor out, develop the more, and really solidify the core clients so that we're working smarter and not spending as much time on operations and production on smaller value events.
Now, you mentioned before you're working on a pretty nice chunky contract, 1.2 million. Is that a typical contract size for you, or is that exceptionally large?
It's exceptionally large, but that's what we're moving toward. And that would be for 2 separate events next year for a larger company.
Okay. So can you give an idea of what kind of event would cost $600,000 to put together?
Yeah, and that's actually not very much. They don't have a huge budget for how many people they have. So one is a summer picnic, and then one is their holiday gathering. And I think they have 7,000 people for the holiday gathering.
Okay.
So yes,
so
it sounds like a lot of money, but it really isn't when you factor in how many people they're trying to entertain.
Yeah. Okay. So in your scheme of projects that you've done, is this looking at how much you're spending per event? Is that considered low end for you, mid end, high end?
It's mid.
Mid.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice though. Nice getting a contract like that.
Yes. And I think next year we'll really be doing more of that. So getting to 5 million next year, I don't think it'll happen next year, but at some point in the near future, 5 million could be 5 contracts.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. Last year in 2017, we did about 750 events. This year alone, we'll do about 800. We'll close December doing 136 events alone in December. So all of those numbers should be going down as our company gets smarter and grows.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I imagine there's a bit of a fixed amount of time and effort that you need to apply for every project. So, why not do a bigger project, right? Because the small ones will still take that same fixed amount of admin and planning
Right,
time.
exactly.
So, very cool. You talked before about identifying your core clients. Do you feel like you nailed that down, or you still need a bit more work on that?
We're working on that. It's something that I've been thinking about just this year in those terms, and identifying and really making a profile for what those core, more and poor clients are. It's challenging because this is my business. I've had it for 18 years. I have to get over my own ego, which is tough to do. It's great to have great advisors and mentors that can see it objectively and say, yes, this person's a wonderful person, but they're spending $10,000 with you a year.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be practical
Right.
about it, because you're spending time on the smaller clients. It takes away what you can do for other clients, right?
Correct.
So, can you share with us what your buyer personas that you have in your mind right now? I understand that you're still evolving them and you're still refining them, but can you share how you picture them today and the message that resonates with them best, the ones that get them to say, yeah, I want to learn more about how entire production can help me, because that message that they just presented to me is spot on.
Right. So what we like to do is show our clients basically that you have a full-time job, you have all these other programs you're doing, you need to do this big splashy event, and honestly, it's at least a half-time job to do this one event. If you use us, we do all the work with your input or no input. There's never no input, but we have some clients that are like, we trust you, we love that, yes, 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 go. Of course, that's easiest for us. And we make them look like superstars. And they were able to focus on their job rather than the one job of this enormous, huge thing that they were tasked with. Mostly because their boss or supervisor doesn't understand how much time it goes into that. So the target demographic, who are they? What do they look like? They mostly have an undergrad college degree. Some of them have, postgraduate degrees, but not many. They're pretty logical. They're down to earth typically. They're hard workers. So, we're not looking at a super overly sophisticated philosophical person. Not that they're not that at all, but they're just people that have a lot on their plate and need to get their jobs done, and they need to look amazing. So we really solved that problem for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this just one persona that you have in your mind, or do you think there might be different?
Yeah, so they're
different.
Yeah, they're different for social versus corporate for sure. Social, our social clients are typically, dressed in fashion. They're going to wear a heel and a statement necklace and probably some sort of a designer handbag. Our corporate clients are more, because of how they're expected to dress and appear at work, they're a little more, they're wearing a suit, a blazer, always a blazer. It's kind of the uniform. They might even have to wear a name tag. They're wearing comfortable shoes. So it's slightly different people, but it's because of the kind of work that they do. So, we know what organizations they're going to. So a social event planner probably isn't going to have any interest in going to MPI, because that's mostly conferences and meetings and, corporate things. So I have a little sketch out of all these people. And this is what I use to train my sales team. This is how you dress and how, to look and fit in with the group that you're presenting to.
So I understand the corporate side that you've shared with me so far. You talk a little bit about social event planning. Now, these aren't people at big companies, and these are separate sort of business lines, separate.
Yeah, so social events encompass everything from anniversary party to birthdays, um, weddings, engagement parties. But we're in the Bay Area, so there's a lot of opportunities for these, pretty wealthy people to put on very large events with headliners, or if they don't use a headliner, they're spending a lot of money on their event, sometimes as much as a corporate event.
Right. Okay. And did they just contract you directly, or do they have someone on their own
Yeah,
personal
both.
household
Exactly.
staff to do
Both.
this?
So sometimes it's direct. Sometimes their caterer will reach out to us. Sometimes they have a household staff that takes care of all their business. The leads to our company come from so many places. An example is someone might reach out to us individually, but then the caterer they hired is also trying to help them find entertainment or extra planning. They'll also call us. And then somebody else will call us that's affiliated with the event, and we have to keep telling everyone, we're already working on this with this person. So thankfully in the Bay Area, at least, a lot of leads for the same event come to us. Very proud of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It's good when all paths lead to one destination, your
Yes.
company, right?
More of that. Let's keep that up.
Yeah, but that's not like you could even slice your ideal buyer personas even a bit more, right? Because I'm just thinking, I'm just brainstorming here. You mentioned on the social side, you have the caterers, you have the personal staff that people might have. You might even have the people who are actually hosting it,
Mm-hmm.
right? They might be people that you need to engage. And then on the corporate side, I imagine you mentioned a few people, right? You have personal assistants who might be tasked with it. You have event planners who do it all the time. I think you also mentioned some HR folks might get involved, perhaps. Yep.
Especially with startups.
I
mean, startups, they don't have an event planner necessarily. And, they might put an email out and say, who wants to do our company kickoff event? And who knows who raises their hand for that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you might need multiple, either might need, if you want to target each of those different categories just by who they are, it sounds like you're going to need to come up with a unique message for each of them, perhaps.
Yes, but I will say, let me give you an example. There's someone on our list that we want to target. We may or may not know today who the target person to talk to is, but it wouldn't take us very long to figure it out. With a Google search or a LinkedIn search to see if they have anybody on their team with the word event in their title, right? So it's event manager, whatever like that. And so then a call to, the main desk or someone who plans your events. There might be a client-facing event planner. There might be a consumer, internal-facing event planner. They may have two separate sides. For instance, Google and Facebook, some of the bigger companies, Apple, they have so many departments and so many planners, they don't actually even know each other. So I joked with one of my Google clients that we were going to host a happy hour to introduce all of their event planners to each other.
That's not a bad idea.
Yes.
So we might know how many there are there. Do you know how many there are there?
There's
at Google?
No, I don't. There's hundreds.
Hundreds, yeah. Wow. That's a pretty big number, but that's not their full-time job, right? I mean, that's more of a responsibility. Hundreds of people have that responsibility.
Some people do have event planning. Like Salesforce is one of our clients, and there's at least 20 people that I know of that are planners. But you have to understand that each division sometimes have their own planners because they're all doing both client-facing and internal-facing events and meetings and conferences.
Right. So how do you keep in touch with all the event planners proactively? Or is it more of they know you, they trust you, and they typically just reach out to you when they need something?
We have an incredible system that I built within Salesforce that we're actually very known for because we've kind of, we've built something that Salesforce even says we use Salesforce to a more extreme than they do internally. So we use Salesforce to reach out to our clients. We can pull a list of any kind of factor. We make sure that any events that are annual are checked in Salesforce so that 3 months before that annual event comes up, that we're reminded to reach out to them if they haven't already reached out to us. People do respond to our social media and our newsletters, and it sort of piques their memory and reminds them, oh gosh, yes, we need to do this now.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms of hitting your growth targets of 5 million, which might be too low if you win that $1 million deal, yeah, right? What do you think is the biggest challenge that you and your team needs to execute to really hit
the
your
biggest
numbers?
challenge, honestly, is finding great people to work for us here at Entire Productions. Right now, the economy is so good. Everyone has a job. And we're looking at a hybrid role of being super creative and in sales. So it's difficult for us to find salespeople is what I'm getting at. A little easier to find production and operations. So we have turned to using a recruiting company. And we finally found one that specializes in hospitality. Now, that's not exactly what we do, but it's close enough that they understand what we're looking for. We've received some great leads from this particular recruiting company, which I'm very thankful for.
Great. Yeah, it's tough finding people to fill jobs when you're at full employment, especially in the Bay Area where they have many choices. So how about on the marketing and sales front? Well, I know from the sales front, you said it's finding salespeople who are creative. Anything on the marketing front that's a big challenge that you need to figure out?
We haven't
other than your buyer persona?
We haven't spent any money or time on SEO. And since we know who our target demographic is, we're not going to spend money on social media marketing, trying to get more followers necessarily. That's not really what we need. That's, I don't need 10,000 followers who have nothing to do with, what we're out there for, events. But I do think that we are getting some pretty big leads from Google searches. And having spent no money on it, I wonder if we throw some money at it and really think strategically what could happen. So that's definitely something we're looking at doing next year.
Right. Two last questions for you. I know you covered this to some degree, but maybe you could recap it again. Who are your ideal clients, and what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so anyone planning a special event for their corporate client or experiential marketing events, so that's brands, usually ad agencies hire us for that. The budgets are usually anywhere from $100,000 to $1.5 million. So that's a pretty big range, but if you do $100,000 events for one company, that's a very good client. And then they can reach out to us at my email, natasha@entireproductions.com. There's also a pretty good web form on our website that gives us the information that we're going to ask you for anyway. So it's always good to answer those questions ahead of time for us to be able to give you a good quote.
You mentioned Instagram a few times. Can you share how people can find you on Instagram?
Yes, the handle is @Entire Productions.
All right, I'm going to check that out myself. See what I'm missing. Well, Natasha, thank you so much for joining me in the call and sharing how you grew your company so fast.
Thank you. It was a delight.
We've been speaking with Natasha Miller, the President and Chief Experience Designer of Entire Productions, about her company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing, high-value sales companies, or to learn how we can accelerate your firm's high-value sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.